Sapphic and Spiritual, a podcast for queer spirituality, because being queer is a spiritual path, with your host, Carly Phillips. Hello, everyone. Today we are joined by special guest Kit Sargent for our first ever interview-based episode on Sapphic and Spiritual. Kit Sargent, they, them, is a 2S LGBTQIA+ mindset and acceptance coach and host of the Queer Consciousness podcast. Their mission is to help empower the queer community to accept themselves and live authentically from the inside out. On their podcast, they share tips and skills to help empower their community through a blend of spirituality and mindset work. It was so incredible to have Kit on the show and to be able to bring other queer voices and perspectives to Sapphic and Spiritual. Join us as we talk all things queer spirituality, from mindset coaching to the importance of community, to showing up in the world authentically, and ending with some dialogue about how we experience queer joy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sapphic and Spiritual. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, Kit Sargent of the Queer Consciousness podcast. Welcome, Kit.
Thanks for having me, Carly.
I'm so happy you're here. Up until now, it's just been me chatting away, so I'm sure listeners will love to have another perspective on the show. I listened to your podcast, and it just felt so aligned. So I'm really excited for our conversation today.
I am too. And just for you guys listening at home, I had Carly on my podcast. So this is just a flipperoo real quick where we just decided to be like, hey, you want to continue this conversation just on the other side? So if you want to technically go listen to part 1 of this conversation, You can go check it out on my podcast.
So Kit is a mindset coach. And I'm curious, Kit, could you tell us a little bit more about what is a mindset coach?
Sure. So your mindset is literally just that. It is how your brain functions and how you think and feel about yourself. And so how you think and feel about yourself directly impacts how you show up in the world. And so for mindset work is the work that you do to shift how you see yourself, so that you can show up in the world in a more authentic way, in your authentic way. So as a coach, my job and my, not just my job, but also my desire, my goal, my purpose is to help guide my clients, not tell them how to do it, not tell them what to do, but allow them to experiment for themselves. What feels authentic to me? What feels in alignment to me? How do I actually want to see myself? Because I can't tell you who you are. It's not my job to tell you who you are. I don't want to tell you who you are.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is I want to give you a safe space for you to be able to figure out who you are without judgment, without expectations, without any sort of requirements, other than you need to figure out who you are for yourself, because you want to figure out who you are for yourself by meeting your needs for yourself. I'm just allowing you the container to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. What struck me when you said that it's really about looking at the thoughts and feelings. My background is in therapy, and the first thing that came to mind is it sounds a lot like cognitive behavioral therapy in a sense, where you have your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors that form this cognitive triad, if you will, where all of them are interconnected and play on one another. But what I really like about what you were explaining and what I thought, and kind of tell me your opinion on this if you see this as a difference, is that it sounds like with mindset coaching, it's exploratory.
And that's exactly what it is. And for me, I like to, because I am not a therapist and I will never claim to be a therapist. I am also very much so a person that will immediately say, hold on, pause. What you are about to say, because I can tell where this is going based on what you have just said. This is out of my wheelhouse. This is way out of my expertise. I am going to strongly urge you to go and find an actual therapist that is going to be able to help you in the way that you desperately need right now. Because for me, that is out of my depth. So if I have a client who comes to me and says, "Hey, my therapist would like me to expand a little bit more. They feel like I could probably do more." And then they're like, "Oh, I saw your TikTok or I saw your Instagram or I heard your podcast and I would like to
Yeah.
work with you." I'm going to be like, "Awesome. Fantastic, by all means." Because the thing that I think of with therapy, because I was in therapy for over a year myself, the thing with therapy is a lot of past focus where
Yes.
you are unpacking your past. You're trying to find the cause of whatever is happening. Whereas mindset work starts there and then goes, okay, how are we going to take that moving forward? What are the steps that you are going that we can put into place that can help you now start to shift in a different direction? Rather than you being so focused on where you came from, let's acknowledge where you are
Yeah.
and figure out where you want to go and how can we work together to get you there.
Yeah.
Because my goal as your coach and as your mentor is to help you get to that version of you, is to
Right.
help you become that version of you. I
Hmm.
can't tell you how to do it. I also can't tell you what that version is. But like you were saying with the exploratory, it's okay, if you've been in therapy for a while, you probably know a lot of your trigger points, a lot of your starting points, a lot
Yeah.
of the things from your past that have helped shape you into this person. Great. Now what?
Right.
Now where are
Right.
you going to go? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's
That's yeah, go ahead, Kit. Sorry.
well, and I was gonna say, and that's why I like working hand in hand with people who already have a therapist or who have had therapy because they have a better understanding of where they are. Because I can't help you in the past. I can only help you with where you're going and where you are right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important because I feel like, and this is not new information to my listeners, they know I've got a lot of issues with the field of mental health, and I'm on a sabbatical from it as I unpack the systems and do I want to be a part of the system or do I not? I don't know. That's why I'm doing more of coaching now myself than therapy, just because some of the systemic issues. But with what you were saying about um, this idea of living in the past, right? Or you've probably, if you've been to therapy, you have probably replayed these stories over and over and over again. And one of the things that I've found professionally, but also personally, is that sometimes as neurodivergent folks, we almost use those past experiences as like a stim where we play them on repeat in our mind, and it's so hard to get out of them that there's times where I feel like going over my trauma repeatedly was re-traumatizing me, that it actually kept me stuck in that same cycle. So I love the idea of what you said about I can't meet you back in 1998. I can't do that. I wish I had a time machine. That sounds great. But what can we do about it now? So it sounds like it's really more solution focused and
Right.
oriented.
Yep. Yep. And the thing with my clients is when I start working with them, we go through my program together. And I have like my non-negotiable where it's like we're going to start here because obviously you have to have a place to start. And I have found that this particular starting point is the best starting point because it's the thing that we always tend to come back to in terms of our own programming because it has to start somewhere. That program has to start
Yeah.
somewhere. So if we come back to the solution part of that starting point where it's like, okay, I know that this is my starting point. How am I going to shift it? Okay, I can start talking to myself in a different way.
Hmm.
So we're going to start there. And then from there, we can build out their own program to be like, okay, I'll give them a very brief rundown of all of my modules and be like, okay, this module focuses on this module focuses on
Yeah.
this, and then we go all the way through it. And then they get to pick out what order they want to do it in. Because what that does is it also allows them to go back through and be like, okay, you know what? I know that we had quote unquote scheduled this module for right now, but I'm really struggling with this thing right now. Can I focus on this to help me get through it? It's like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We can focus on that and you can take as long as you need to. Like I have a base set up, but I am here to help serve you.
Yeah, and I think whether it's coaching or therapy, we often box ourselves into this mindset of like, okay, well, healing follows this protocol
Mhm.
and these steps, and this is how you do it. When in reality, the saying, I'm sure most people are familiar with it, of like the healing is not linear. It is not. And so it's so important, whatever type of healing work that you do, and even for ourselves, to if we're engaging as a healer or coach or therapist, to always meet our clients where they are. And that goes for ourselves too, to
Mhm.
kind of get into the practice and mindset of like figuring out where we are so we can be of the best service to ourselves as well.
So for
Yeah.
me to help you realize that you are allowed to ask for your needs to be met, ask. Say, I need this today. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And my job as your coach is to meet those needs. It's to
Yeah.
help you understand that your needs are valid,
Hmm.
even if that need is to be by yourself.
Yeah.
And the thing is like there are times, and I've had to do this for myself, where I call it a WTF moment, where all of a sudden I'll just blow up and I'll be like, what the was that? Where did that come from? It's kind of like parts work,
Yeah.
where then I'm like, I can take, because of the amount of work that I have done, not only with myself, but also with other coaches that have taught me this. It's like, okay, hold on. What need do I need met right now? And can I go and meet that need for myself?
Yeah.
But the thing is like in that moment, sometimes the 7, 8, 9, 15-year-old version of ourselves is the one that came to the forefront and just
Absolutely.
reacted
Yeah.
because that's the last time that we were able to build from. So it's like, nope, we always go back to this version of ourselves because that's what we're comfortable with. That's what we know. But now, as the 36-year-old version of myself, I can look at be like, hold on.
Hmm.
Okay, take a breather, take a pause. What do you need?
Yeah.
And I can come back to my present self and not allow that past version of myself to be the one that's in control. They had their moment, they had their blow up. Now I get the chance to reparent myself. I get to respond to myself. I can start shifting how I see myself and be like, oh, that was just a part of me that demanded attention. Okay, how can I give them the attention that they need to meet the need that is currently needed?
Yeah.
How am I going to do that? And then by doing that for myself, I can then do that for my clients.
That container is just so important, and the reparenting piece, because I feel like without having that container and without doing that deep reparenting work that so many of us need and require, I think the shame then rises when our needs aren't met, and it just leads to this place of self-hatred and feeling shame, and that keeps us stuck in that cycle, and it just becomes never ending. So that container just feels so critical when doing this work. I think the importance of coaching or therapy or working with a healer, whatever avenue that you choose to take, it's so important because it's relational. A lot of these experiences that we're trying to recover from are experiences that were relational in nature. And, I know I'm someone that I've always been like Miss Independent, and I can get myself out of anything. And I've really prided myself on this hyper independent state of being. And quite frankly, that's gotten me nowhere. It truly is the community and that container and having that sense of safety with someone else to be able, I think, to do the work effectively. Because we have to start to get to a place where it's like, okay, I can feel safe trusting someone else.
And the thing with working with a coach is, like specifically working with a mindset coach, is when you start to shift your mindset around how you see yourself, your acceptance of yourself skyrockets because you are now living from the inside out. Being able to start to bring your subconscious to the conscious, to understand that a lot of the thoughts that you have about yourself is all programming. It's all things that you have been told your whole life.
Yeah.
It's all that conditioning of patterns, behavioral patterns specifically, that aren't authentic to us as an individual, but it's the only thing that we have known how to exist as because it's the thing that we were told to exist as.
Right.
And so when we allow ourselves to now finally step into our own authenticity and our own acceptance, how we start to see ourselves and how we start to talk, not just to ourselves, but also about ourselves, shifts.
You were saying, say that again. You said something about seeing yourself from the inside out, not the outside in. Is that
Hmm.
how you phrased it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you live authentically, and like people are like, oh, authenticity is such a buzzword.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a buzzword, but realistically, what it is, it's living from the inside out. It's living from your own set of values. It's living from your own set of beliefs and understandings and acknowledged lived experiences where you are validating your own existence,
Hmm.
regardless of what anybody else is telling you or what anyone else thinks. Because the only person who knows you better than you is you.
Right.
Nobody else on this planet knows you as well as you know yourself. Your parents can tell you that they know you better than you know yourself. Your grandparents can tell you, your caregivers, anybody who is your direct person, they can say that I know you better than you know yourself. I'm going to tell you right now, that is a bold-faced lie
Yeah.
because they are not with you 24/7. They are not in your head. They are not in your body. They cannot feel your feelings. They cannot think your thoughts. You are the only person who can do that. So nobody knows you better than you know you. The thing is, you have been told your entire life that everyone outside of you knows you better than you know you. So when society is constantly reiterating the fact that you cannot know yourself because everyone else is the only person who can know you, how do you know who you are?
Right. You don't.
You don't.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when you finally start to acknowledge the fact that you are the only person who knows what's good for you because you are the only person who is thinking and feeling all of your own thinking and feelingness, that's when you are finally able to stand in your authenticity because it is your truth. But when you start to understand that how you see yourself is also how you talk to yourself, and not just talk to yourself, but also talk about yourself. There's a difference from between talking to yourself and talking about yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you're sharing your lived experience with someone else, you're talking about yourself. How are you talking about yourself?
Yeah.
Are you using a lot of self-deprecating humor because you don't want to be the butt of the joke? And you're like, well, if I make fun of myself, you can't make fun of me.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about yourself. And there's a part of you that actually hears that and it believes that because you are talking about yourself. So when you start to shift how you talk to yourself, it automatically shifts how you start talking about yourself. So when you start to say things like I am rather than I have or I want, there's a different energy that comes with those words because you're owning it. So when you are saying like I am queer or I am authentic, there's an energy that comes with those words. And so when you start talking about yourself to yourself, when you start talking about yourself, then it becomes more true because your
Yeah.
body hears all of the things that you are saying to it. And now it's actually believing it because now you're reiterating that when you talk about yourself.
Yeah, it's like aligning with that I am frequency
Mm-hmm.
internally. I love that. I love the idea of living inside out. It's funny, when I was meditating the other day, whenever I'm trying to connect with my higher self, I've typically always kind of envisioned it as like it coming from outside of me, as if the energy is like dropping in and it's coming down, through my crown chakra and coming in that way. And the other day, I had this download where it was like, no, 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 we're not going to do it like that anymore. I want you to literally imagine that you're like unzipping your skin, that the you, the higher self version of you, it lives within. Yeah, I think it's such a shift in perspective. Mindset, coaching, I guess. There you go. Shift in
Yeah.
mindset. But it is because I think not just from a societal standpoint, but even from a spiritual standpoint, a lot of the times we think of truth or wisdom or, our higher self or higher consciousness, whatever you want to refer to that as something that comes outside of us, when in reality, it's already there. It's something that is inside of us already, and it's connecting with that. And
Yeah.
I think that can feel scary, but also super empowering to know that you don't necessarily have to go out searching for something, that
Hmm.
it already lies within you.
Right. It's coming home to yourself.
Yes.
That's the whole point,
Yeah.
is to give and also give yourself the permission to come home.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you need someone else to give you permission to do the thing that you've always wanted to do. When we were talking about queerness on my podcast, one of the things that I really like to think about queerness is we are coming home to ourselves, because our queerness is so specific to us, where when you start to shift how you perceive yourself, how you understand yourself, and how you know yourself, you're coming back home to yourself,
Hmm.
because you're not allowing society and family and friends and bosses and coworkers and all of the people that you come into contact with on a day-to-day basis. You are no longer allowing them to dictate who you are and how you show up,
Yeah.
because you know who you are, because you are solid and grounded in yourself.
Hmm.
Two words, yourself.
Right.
And by allowing yourself to do that, for me as a queer person, that goes against everything that society stands for.
Yeah.
So for me, I love being queer because I love being able to pretty much blow up the binary and really start to show other people that you don't have to live your life according to someone else.
Yeah.
You don't have to let anyone else dictate who you are. And allowing myself to stand in that allows me to see myself fully. I see all parts of myself, not just the good, but also the not so good. I mean, if we're going to use good and bad. Um, but the things that I am like, I know for a fact to be true to me, and also things that I know for a fact aren't true to me, but what am I going to do about it?
Right.
How am I going to shift that? Am I going to take what resonates and leave the rest? Or am I going to disregard it completely and be like, you know what? I am completely done with this. I'm
Yeah.
getting rid of this. This was never mine to begin with. I picked it up for some odd reason, and I've been carrying it around with me for however long, and now I'm done. So I'm putting it down. I'm leaving it in the past.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to stay. But I'm going to continue forward.
Yeah, and this kind of goes along with what we were talking about with queerness being kind of the mechanism that leads us home to ourselves. And you were mentioning that we're not just a physical body, right? Like we have our mental body, we have our emotional body, we have our spiritual body. Coming home to ourselves through queerness and how it relates to mindset is like when you start to shift the mindset, then the other bodies, in air quotes, they also start to integrate with this new, more aligned and authentic version of you. So it sounds like it's also just really encompassing not just the mind. I'm really hearing you say that mindset work is not, yes, it might start in the mind, but it really does overlap in all of these different layers of self as well. And our
Yep.
queerness really, as we were saying, our queerness can really be that anchor that brings us back to all of those truths.
Yeah. And the reason why I love working with queer clients so much is because they teach me just as much as I teach them.
Yeah.
Because we all have the base lived experience of being queer.
Yeah.
Whether you're lesbian, gay, trans, bi, it doesn't matter. Knowing that we all have that starting point lived experience of us saying, yeah, I'm queer, I'm different than everybody in society. There's an unspoken common ground where we don't have to try and justify who we are. We don't have to explain who we are. We just automatically accept who we are, because I first and foremost see you as my fellow human.
So, Kit, how did you get into mindset coaching? What was your lived experience or your personal journey in a nutshell? I know we could probably talk about this for hours, but what led you to doing this type of work?
For me, I started in therapy. Like I had been in
Yeah.
therapy for probably 9 months before I started working with my first coach. And I made great progress in therapy because up until that point, I had never had anyone who actually listened to me when I talked. Um, and I was really able to unpack a lot of my childhood, my teenagehood, my early adulthood, and really started to get to the bottom of a lot of the things that I had to work through. And that was great. And then it kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, I don't really feel like I'm making progress anymore. I feel like I'm just constantly coming back to the same stories, trying to sort it out from a different perspective now. Like
Mm.
looking at my 7-year-old self or my 15-year-old self or my 7-year-old self or my 25-year-old self. And it's like, that's great. But why am I focusing on my 7-year-old self? Like, I'm pretty sure they're parented pretty good. And if they're not, then I'll figure they'll show me at some point. But then I was like, okay, I want more. I want more and I want to do something more. And so, like any normal person, you go to social media and like I pretty much just started typing in like self-development and personal growth and personal development and however many deviations of that words you can possibly throw into the Instagram algorithm. And I just started following people, specifically queer folks, because
Mhm.
I was like, straight, you're great, but I'm done with you for right now. And so I started following queer content creators that were either therapists or life coaches or trauma informed coaches. At this point, I don't even remember because it was probably 400 of them that I was following at that point. But one of them stood out in particular, and I started really liking their stuff, and I really started resonating with who they were and how they coached. And so after a couple of months of me consistently watching all of their reels, watching all of their like liking all of their posts, commenting, watching all of their stories, they reached out to me one day and was like, "Hey, love your support. I see your name pop up all the time. Um, how are you?" And I was like,
Wow.
"Hi." That's awesome because of course me being the very shy introvert that I am, like it was just bold for me to comment on a
Yeah.
photo, let alone like actually start a conversation with
Yeah.
someone in a DM. So like when they reached out to me, I was like, you're actually a human.
Wow. Yeah.
Like you are who you say you are. And so we jumped on a call and started from there. And I worked with them for about 6 months. And they really helped me kind of continue on where therapy had left off.
Yeah.
Was because I was like, I'm done dealing with my past. I want to now focus on my future. Like my past is going to come up all the time. Like I learned that in therapy. It was like, it's going to come up. It's going to come up and it's going to come up and it's going to come up. You're never going to get away from it. However, working with my first coach allowed me to start shifting out of my past and into my future, where it was like, okay, who do I want to become? I
Hmm.
know who I have been, but I am not that person anymore. So why do I keep focusing on them? They're not the person that needs the nurturing right now. I can't do anything about them. But what I can do is I can nurture the person that I am right now to bring in the person that I am becoming because they're both happening simultaneously. The
Yeah.
person you are right now is simultaneously the person who you are becoming. And so it's like, okay, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be in 5 years? What can I do to start bringing that version of me into the present moment? What can I do to start doing that? And so once I started to do that, then that started to shift how I saw the world because it started to shift how I saw myself. And then I started to realize, oh, this is what I want to do for others because it was done for me first.
Yeah.
Because I helped myself do it through the guidance of someone who had done it before me. And then I started working with other coaches who had very much so similar mindsets and different trainings, obviously, but still along the same mindset of, okay, who do you want to become? And what are the steps you are going to take to become that person? And so then I just kind of started going from there, being like, okay, if I were my own client, what would I do? How would I help myself if I wasn't me? And
Right.
so then I just kind of started from there where I was like, if I am my client zero, which I am because I'm always coaching myself, I'm always learning, I'm always growing, I'm always constantly trying to evolve because it's what we're supposed to. Well, I don't say supposed to. That's what I want to be doing as a
Right.
human. And so I was like, okay, how would I do that for somebody else? How am I going to meet someone else where I was if they are where I am now. And so then I just kind of started from there and it's evolved ever since.
That's amazing. I love what you were saying about when these other, if we're talking about parts work, so your 8-year-old self or your 13-year-old self, we do often spend so much time going back and kind of, rescuing them in an internal family systems, approach, for example. And what I love about what you were saying about living in the present moment is that I feel like the more whole and the more we nurture the present version of us, we're actually better equipped then to go back and to really care for and reparent those younger parts of ourselves in the way that they deserve. I feel like without getting a solid foundation of who we really are and spending that time nurturing the relationship that we have with the potential self that already exists somewhere in time and space reality, the greater that bond we can create with that version of us, that's actually what that person needs.
Yeah.
We're doing a disservice actually to that person because we're still operating with the same framework if we're
Yep.
not focusing on the present. So I think that's really powerful to be able to do that. When you were talking about who is it that I want to be, who is this person I want to be 5 years from now? How did you come to that? Like, how did you decide who it was that you wanted to be?
I kind of just looked at myself and was like, okay, who would I need
Yeah.
in my life right now to come and tell me the thing that I needed to hear? And then I would just kind of tell that to myself. It's like, at what point are you going to start taking your own advice?
Yeah.
Like you can give so much good advice to literally every person on this planet, and it can help them change their lives. But when are you going to start doing that for yourself? When are you actually going to start focusing on you?
Hmm.
Because the only way that you are able to legitimately show up for other people is if you show up for yourself first. It is the most selfless thing that you can do. And the highest form of service that you can be
Yeah.
is to be the most favorite version of yourself and to be the version of yourself that you need the most. Because that version of you needs someone else and you are needed by someone else. It's a both and in that situation,
Yeah.
but it first starts with you. And a
Yeah.
lot of people hear that and they're like, man, you are so selfish. And it's like, no, this is the most selfless thing that I can do. And it's the most selfless thing that I want to do because I want to be of service. I want to help humanity. I want to be able to look at every single person on this planet that I come into contact with and say, how can I serve you today? I know that when I am myself, I can create that ripple. I can be that little pebble drop that causes things to happen because kindness is contagious,
Yeah.
but you have to be kind to yourself first. And it's not even a fake it till you make it situation. Yes, you can fake kindness, but you cannot fake a smile. Yeah, you can smile with your mouth, but you have to smile with your eyes. Calling back.
Smizing.
Smizing. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Tyra Banks.
Oh, so we just aged ourselves on that one, but I
We
am not
did.
mad about it. I ain't mad about that one.
That's all
Um,
right.
But that's the thing is like someone can see your face and see whether or not your smile is authentic. The thing is, when you smile authentically, when you force an authentic smile, it changes the energy in your body. That has been scientifically
Yeah.
proven that if you force yourself to smile authentically, it changes your energy. It's the same with laughing. If you start laughing just because, you're going to continue laughing and it's going to change your entire perspective.
Yeah.
As an individual, when you start to shift how you see yourself, that's going to shift how you show up in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. That changes everything. And I think this is a really good leeway into our next question here. So basically on this podcast, it's created under the premise that being queer is a spiritual path, right? So I'm curious, based on everything that you were saying about really allowing more and more of you to come out into the awareness of others and living from the inside out. How do you see your queerness connected to spirituality?
I like to think of my queerness as my superpower because what it allows me to do is it allows me to see others because it allowed me to first see myself.
Yeah,
And when you finally allow yourself to be fully seen by yourself, fully accepted, fully loved, fully everything by you, you are then allowing yourself to see others because you saw all of your humanity, all of the quote unquote good and quote unquote bad. You saw yourself and you said, man, I really like me. Not only do I like me, but I also love me. There is a difference between like and love. And because I love myself unconditionally, I can love other people unconditionally as well, because I first and foremost see them as humans.
yeah,
I see their humanity first. And by doing that, I am allowing myself to see past their projections. Because a lot of times, a lot of us live in fear because we've been conditioned to do that. We've been conditioned to walk around with our guard up. We've been conditioned to present in a very specific way so that we are liked by others. We are quote unquote accepted by others,
yeah,
but we don't necessarily belong. We want belonging, but we need to belong to ourselves first. And by doing that, I have allowed myself to belong to myself. So I don't necessarily need to be quote unquote liked by everyone because I'm not going to be liked by everyone. I can't be liked by everyone. There's 8 billion people on this planet. There is no way I'm going to be able to be liked by every single one of them. And it will never happen. And I don't like to speak in absolutes, but I can promise you that I will never be liked by everyone. Nor do I want to be. Because that's a lot of pressure that you're
yeah,
putting on yourself to be constantly living up to someone else's perception of you, their expectations of you, their requests of you. You're living for them,
yeah,
which means that you are putting all of your ownness onto them. Where instead I'm saying, I don't want to be liked by everyone. So I'm taking that ownness back. I'm belonging back to myself. And so by allowing myself to fully express my queerness, I'm also allowing myself to fully express my spirituality.
yeah,
Because as a spiritual being having a human experience, in order for me to have the full human experience, I also need to be able to tap into my spirituality. And we were talking about this on my podcast, is allowing ourselves to express our spiritual gifts.
mm-hmm.
We all have very specific gifts. I don't have the same gifts that Carly has. Carly doesn't have the same gifts that I have because we're two very different individuals.
Yeah,
But we both need each other's gifts to help propel humanity forward. And so to allow myself to see myself, accept myself, love myself unconditionally, I also give other people permission to do that for themselves as well. Because I'm like, I don't have to like you. You don't have to like me.
yeah,
I'm not going to be mad that you don't. So to be able to have that where I'm like, no, I see you as a human. I validate your existence and I say, we can exist on this planet together. I'm going to exist over here. You're going to exist over there. We had an interaction and that's the end of that.
yeah, coming from a place of acceptance and what you said about service, that ultimately the goal being service in terms of spirituality. I think it's so interesting because if you were to go back and think about, for me, my teenage self or myself in my 20s, if I would think that my queerness would be something that would be of service to the world, I would tell you that it was the opposite, that I thought I was doing a service to others by hiding my queerness. I thought that that was what would help me to fit in. So I'm so happy that you mentioned the difference between acceptance and belonging, because I think that that's where a lot of us get stuck in
Yeah.
terms of like the best way that I can help others is to not really be seen or to silence myself or to just hide. And the truth of that is it's not. It's the opposite. You're doing a disservice to yourself and humanity. Like the
Mhm.
world needs each and every one of our unique levels of weirdness, of uniqueness, of whateverness it might be. So yeah, I think the acceptance piece is what we think we're longing for when we choose to hide our authentic selves or our queerness or our spirituality, whatever it might be. Really, what's the aim of acceptance? Fitting in? Like I think as humans we are not I think, I know, as humans we are hardwired for something deeper than just acceptance, and that is belonging.
Right. When we give ourselves permission to first and foremost belong to ourselves, we are then allowing ourselves to pick who we belong with, not to.
Great
We don't
point.
belong to anyone. The
Right.
only person we belong to is ourselves. When we start allowing ourselves to belong with other people, those are the people that truly start to accept us because they don't force us to be anyone but ourselves. And when we start being a different version of ourselves, those of us that we truly belong with, they're going to question that version, especially if they have already known our true selves, where they're like, wait, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This is not you. I have seen the real you. I have seen you in your pure joy. I have seen you in your pure bliss. I have seen you at your absolute happiest. This is not you. What's going on? Because they want you to stay belonging with them.
Yeah, we need those guides, these earthside guides of our community and our friends who really do know us when we do start to go astray. And, you know, I feel like before coming out for me, I don't feel like I had anyone like that. I feel like most people in my life, it was like a thermometer of how much of me or how little of me can I present to the world to stay safe. And yeah, I mean, none of those people, with the exception of my best friend, are like even in my life anymore. And we were talking about this before, as neurodivergent people, sometimes community is hard. You know, even like for me doing this podcast interview with you, just to be like super vulnerable, the neurodivergent parts of me were freaking out about this because I like to have everything so scripted and to
Mm-hmm.
think about just having to have a conversation versus my normal routine with the podcast where it's like I'm showcasing my writing and my research and all these other things where like the connection to having this conversation with you felt far more daunting than anything that I've actually done on the
Yep.
podcast so far. But that's where we grow. Like
Right.
we going back to what you were saying about gifts, you know, that is part of the gift of being in community is where not only do we get to learn from that person, but it also teaches us something about ourselves. And it's just such a beautiful exchange at the end of the day.
Right. And that's what connection is all about, is
Yeah,
it's a give and take. It's not just a and it's not even it's not a quid pro quo either. It's
right,
I am freely giving of myself because you are freely giving of yourself.
right.
And we are taking just enough. We aren't taking too much. We aren't taking too little. We are taking the Goldilocks
Yeah,
amount where I am able to leave a connection with someone and say, they didn't drain me, but they also didn't drown me.
right. Yeah, it makes me think of energetic boundaries. I used to think of energetic boundaries in terms of almost completely cloaking myself so no
Mm,
one else could get in.
yeah.
And lately I've shifted it to have it being, you know, there's some holes in that, that the good amount of stuff can come in as well. It's not that I'm just completely blocking my energy field because it is a give and take. Connection's just so important. We are hardwired as humans for connection. And that's one of the things that I just love about being queer is that we do have this built-in community of people who understand. And sure, you know, no two people are ever going to walk the same path, but to be able to just even here today to have this conversation and to be able to relate. I think it's so important for us to continue these conversations.
And it starts by being the example. So by us having this conversation, and listener, when you are listening to this conversation, even though you can't directly interact with Carly or I, just listening is allowing you to start opening yourself up to have these connections because you heard it done first. It gives you a starting point to be like, well, if they can have a conversation having never met before, but they are allowing each other to hold space for each other, maybe I can do that too.
Yeah.
And even if it's somebody who you only have a casual acquaintance with, but you are like, I keep coming back to them. It could be a coworker at work that every time you go to get coffee in the morning, they're right there filling up their cup for the day. Rather than you just saying hi and then doing your thing, it could be like, hey man, how was your weekend? Or how was your day yesterday? And it starts small. Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable, but you can start small. You don't have to launch into yeah. So when I was 7, it's like, whoa, hold on, man.
Let me trauma dump on you.
Right. That's like, okay, hold on, hang on. You can ask them bits and pieces at first,
Yeah.
because then it also allows you to start feeling out, okay, is this an actual safe person that
Yeah.
I like? Is this vibe? Am I actually feeling what I'm feeling?
Right.
And then you can start tapping into your intuition. And you
Yeah.
can start building that trust within yourself to be like, okay, my intuition is actually right.
Hmm.
Yes, it is always. Your intuition is always right. It is never wrong.
Yeah.
But it's building that communication with your own intuition, because it's also you coming back home to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And intuition, I like to think of it as it's a muscle. We
Mhm.
have to be continuously working and flexing our intuition in order for it to just become so innate that there's just this instantaneous mind body connection with it. And when we don't trust our intuition, it does take a bit longer for us to reestablish then what our intuition actually is telling us. I know for me, for a while, it felt like maybe I should do the opposite of what I think I should do because I didn't listen to my intuition for so long that it's like maybe it's the opposite. But yeah, we have to actually practice listening to our intuition. And I think for everyone, their own unique experience with their intuition is going to be so different.
Mhm.
For some people, it's tuning into their sacral chakra and developing that sense of connection with what does it feel like if it's a yes for me? What does it feel like if it's a no? For others, it might be, trusting just that feeling that you get. So I think it's developing too that unique practice for yourself of how am I going to define and operationalize what my intuition is telling me. And I love it. I love working with intuition because it's like we get to rewrite kind of a dictionary of what all of this means for us.
Yeah. And thinking about it from like a mindset perspective, it's you building your own self-trust.
Yeah, yeah. And that
Because when
takes
you
time.
start to shift how you trust yourself, you're tapping into your intuition. That's
Yeah.
really what you're doing. Because in order for you to be able to make decisions for yourself in a very authentic way, you have to trust yourself. You
Yeah.
have to, because you have to trust that the decision that you are going to make is the correct one
Mhm.
in this moment with the amount of information that you have. You are making the next right decision. Because the thing is, even if you quote unquote made the wrong one, you can change it.
Yeah.
You can't know what you don't know until you know that you don't know it.
Point.
And then you learn and you do better. And the higher your trust is in yourself, the less likely you are to make quote unquote wrong decisions.
Yeah.
Because when you start to really trust yourself, you're like, I am going to make this decision is the best one for me right now. Because this is the only decision that I can make for myself right now. Or this is the decision that I want to make for myself right now. It's the one that feels most authentic. It's the one that feels most in alignment. How whatever else definition you want to put on it, but it's you trusting yourself. It's you tapping into your intuition saying, yeah, this is right. And that's the decision that you need to make for your highest evolution, because it allows you to become your favorite version of yourself.
Yeah, it's that inner compass that really guides us where we need to be and
Yep.
back home to ourselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the sake of time, I know we could probably chat all day. But I do have one final question for you. With it being Pride Month, what would you say for you queer joy looks like? What is queer joy? What does it mean?
Queer joy to me is being completely in love with myself and the world around me. Because when I let myself do that, I am letting myself tap into my inner child, and I'm just basically letting them run amok. Like, not in a bad way, but when you really, I don't want to say don't give any Fs, but when you really start to tap into your true bliss, you are doing all of the things that light you up in such a way where you truly do not care that you are dancing in your underwear in the middle of the grocery store because you are 3 years old and you're like, I don't like this dress anymore. And you whip it off and you're like, I am happy dancing in my underwear. Like, but that's the thing is you look at a little kid when they do that and you're like, they are so happy. They do not care.
Yeah.
They don't care. The level of joy that they have in that tiny little body of theirs is so overwhelming to them that they have to express it right then and there. And that to me is pure queer joy, is allowing yourself to tap into that side of yourself where you're like, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I don't care what anyone else says. You cannot and will not stop me from expressing myself in the most authentic and the purest happiness that I can possibly alliterate at this moment. You can't do it.
Mm-mm.
And so for me, that is what pure joy is it's allowing my inner child to be their most authentic self. Because like when I was 7 years old, I knew exactly who I was. And then as I got older, I started to lose that version of myself because of conditioning and unlearning and relearning and pattern programming and all of the things that society does to you as you get older. And now I'm starting to allow myself to get back to that version of me where I don't care what you think of me. I don't care what you say about me. I know my truth and I am standing on business.
I love what you said about just the pure joy that a child exudes. Sometimes when we're talking about, rescuing our inner child, there's times where I feel like that does a disservice to our inner child because I think our inner child, like you said, actually holds such a profound amount of truth about who we are. Like they know us more
Mm-hmm.
than any other part. They've walked this life, this path with us longer than any other part has.
Yep.
And so really, yeah, I love that of letting them, the version of you who always knew who you were, let them lead the way. Fuck it. Dance naked in the grocery store if that's what you want to do. I mean, don't, listeners, do not. I don't want
Don't do
anyone,
that. Please
no,
don't do
no.
that. That was
Don't
that
say
was
that we encouraged this, although it does sound fun. But
it does. I mean, honestly, if you're gonna dance naked in your house.
yes.
Like put on your favorite dance song, strip down to your drawers, and just have a party. Just have a party. Even if it's just you by yourself dancing away, do it.
Yeah.
Let your inner child just run amok and just
Yeah.
be like, I'm going to find my favorite song from when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. I'm going to put it on and all I'm going to do is dance. Because if you're that concerned about what other people think, what do you think?
Yeah.
Because if you're the only person in your house that is dancing at that time, what is stopping you? Nobody's going to see you. It's just you and maybe your cats and dogs and parrots and whatever pets you have, but they don't care. They might look at you like, why are you moving like that? You've never moved like that before. But they also might be one of those dogs. It's like, oh, you're dancing. I'm going to come dance too. And then they
Yeah.
might dance around you and you have a party in your kitchen.
Yeah.
Do it.
And sometimes it's easier to start practicing that within a safe space like your house before you go
Yes.
out into the world and do that. So, yeah, baby steps. And I love what you said about listening to your favorite songs from when you were younger. I have an inner teen playlist that I love to go back to when I can just feel my angry inner teenager coming out, and I'll play, I'll age myself again. It's like Dashboard Confessional and like Newfound Glory, all of the something corporate, like my early 2000s emo. And
Yes.
right? Good stuff, good stuff. But I love going back to the music and being like, oh yeah, like this makes a lot of sense as to why I was feeling this way now or this trigger came up. So yeah,
Mhm.
queer joy is it's going back to those parts of us that weren't allowed to express who we are and
Yep.
to be like, yeah, like I'm gonna dance. Not that you can really dance to Dashboard Confessional if anyone knows their music, but I'm gonna I'm gonna cry. No, I'm gonna do this for that version of me, who didn't have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like now you can be the cool parent.
Right.
where like when you start to do that, you will find that it is incredibly healing, even if you only do it once. Just allowing yourself to tap into it. I can promise you, for one thing, you're not going to just want to do it once because it's contagious as all hell. But allowing yourself to do that, to be the parent that you needed at that moment, to say, yeah, go crazy, kid. Go crazy. Go sliding across the floor in your socks. Do the whole risky business thing. Put on a dance, put on a dress shirt and grab a microphone and slide across the dining room in your socks and your underwear and your dress in sunglasses. Do it. Do it. I'm gonna like I can be because you can be the cool parent. You can be the parent that you needed at that moment. And that's one of those examples of reparenting yourself.
Yeah.
Is as your adult version now, giving your child self that permission in the moment, that's going to heal so much. And frankly, that might be the one thing that you needed to get unstuck, is to be the parent and say, child me, we are going to do this,
Yeah.
and do it with them. Like in your mind's eye, have a picture of yourself and then be like, I'm going to dance with my kid
Yeah.
version of myself. I'm going to dance with myself when I was that age because that's what I wanted my parent to do.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was have a dance party in the kitchen with my mom or with my dad or with whoever my guardian was at that point. But now I get to do that for myself.
And it's play too. It's the dance party. I think when we're talking about inner child work, sometimes we get so stuck on these deep wounds that our inner children have. But the truth is, they're kids. They want to play. They want to be silly. They want to dance. They want to create. They want to finger paint and draw with sidewalk chalk and whatever it might be. And so bringing more play. When I think of queer joy too, it's play. It's being creative. It's self-expression, whatever that looks like. Really
Yeah.
just exuding more of you outward into the world. Any last words or anything else you would like to add, Kit? Anything that we haven't talked about today?
But no, I think we pretty much covered literally everything.
Everything and anything.
This is
Yes.
true. I was like, I mean, we could talk for probably another 3 hours if we just kept letting the conversation go, but I don't know if y'all would want to listen to us jabber on for another hour.
Probably not.
My attention span would run after a while. I'd be like, yeah, I'm talked out. I'm pretty tanked at this point.
Well, thank you so much, Kit, for joining us today. It's been wonderful to have this conversation with you, and we'd love to have you back.
I would love to come back. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you so much, Kit.
Thank you.